4 aircraft. 16 enemies. No missiles fired. No guns blazing. And yet, in less than 12 minutes, 4 U.S. Navy Super Hornets achieved what textbooks would call impossible. They outmaneuvered, outthought, and completely dominated 16 Chinese fighter jets in a simulated engagement that sent shockwaves through Beijing's military command. This isn't Hollywood. This is modern air warfare. And what happened in the skies above the Pacific Ocean that day revealed a truth that no amount of propaganda could hide. Numbers mean nothing when you're fighting blind. This is the story of how 4 American pilots turned a 4 versus 16 disadvantage into a masterclass in tactical superiority. To understand this engagement, we need to rewind to the broader picture. The year is 2016. Tensions in the South China Sea are at a boiling point. China has built artificial islands, installed missile batteries, and declared air defense identification zones over international waters. The United States, committed to freedom of navigation, responds by sailing carrier strike groups through the disputed region. The USS John C. Stennis, a Nimitz-class supercarrier, is operating near the Philippine Sea. On board, the Black Knights of Strike Fighter Squadron 154, some of the most experienced Super Hornet pilots in the U.S. Navy. Their mission? Routine air superiority patrols. But on this particular day, Chinese Eastern Theater Command decides to test American resolve. They scramble 16 fighters, a mix of J-11B flankers and J-10 multirole jets, from bases on Hainan Island. The message was clear: you're outnumbered. Turn back. But the Americans didn't blink. 4 Super Hornets, call signs Night 1 through Night 4, continued their patrol. What happened next would be studied in air combat schools for years to come. Let's break down the battlefield. The Chinese formation approaches from the northwest, 16 aircraft in a loose combat spread. On paper, this should be a slaughter. The People's Liberation Army Air Force has been modernizing rapidly. Their J-11s are reverse-engineered copies of Russia's formidable Su-27 flanker. Fast. Maneuverable. Deadly. But here's the first problem: they're not talking to each other. Unlike American formations, which operate within a seamless network of data links, AWACS support, and satellite communications, the Chinese pilots are flying semi-independently. Their radars are active, broadcasting their positions like lighthouses in the dark. Meanwhile, the 4 Super Hornets are flying in what's called a fluid 4 formation. They're not just 4 aircraft, they're a single, distributed sensor network. Every radar contact, every electronic signature, every piece of data is shared instantaneously across the formation. Night 1, the flight lead, makes the call: let's go electronic warfare heavy. Paint them, but don't lock. Make them think we're everywhere. What follows is a masterclass in psychological warfare. The Super Hornets activate their AN/ALQ-214 integrated defensive electronic countermeasures. This isn't just jamming, it's deception. The Chinese radar starts seeing ghost targets. Phantom aircraft appearing and disappearing. Missile lock warnings blaring in their headsets. One Chinese pilot reports 12 targets. Another reports 8. Command radios back confused instructions. The formation begins to fracture. Meanwhile, the Americans haven't even turned on their targeting radars. They're using passive sensors, detecting radiation from the Chinese radars without revealing their own positions. It's like playing poker when you can see your opponent's cards, but they can't see yours. Night 2 identifies a gap in the Chinese formation. Night 3 spots 2 J-10s flying too close together, a rookie mistake. Night 4 tracks a J-11 breaking away prematurely, likely low on fuel. The Americans haven't fired a shot. But they've already won the information war. Now comes the tactical execution. Night 1 calls the maneuver, bracket high-low. On my mark. 2 Super Hornets climb to 40,000 feet. The other 2 drop to the deck, just 5,000 feet above the ocean. The Chinese, fixated on the high contacts, don't realize they're being flanked. This is where training separates professionals from amateurs. The U.S. Navy pilots have flown thousands of hours in red flag exercises, Top Gun courses, and carrier qualifications. They've been trained to fight outnumbered. The Chinese pilots, despite flying capable aircraft, have minimal realistic combat training. Their doctrine emphasizes mass formations and ground-controlled intercepts, tactics from a bygone era. The Super Hornets execute a textbook bracket and extend maneuver. The high element threatens from above, forcing the Chinese to split their attention. The low element accelerates, using the ocean's radar clutter as cover. In air combat, the side that controls geometry wins. And right now, the Americans control everything. The Chinese formation, now thoroughly confused and separated, begins making critical errors. 3 aircraft turn defensive, breaking off the engagement entirely. 4 more cluster together, eliminating their mutual support. The remaining 9 are scattered across 50 miles of sky. In a real combat scenario, this is where the AIM-120 AMRAAMs would launch. The Super Hornets AN/APG-79 active electronically scanned array radar locks onto 16 targets simultaneously, something the Chinese radars simply cannot do. The Americans achieve what's called first look, first shot, first kill. They see the enemy first. They could shoot first. And they would kill first. But this is a training exercise monitored by both sides. The rules of engagement are clear: demonstrate capability, assert dominance, but don't escalate. Night 1 radios the Chinese formation on International Guard frequency. Attention PLAF aircraft, you are being tracked by multiple US Navy fighters. Recommend you return to base. There's a pause. Then, one by one, the Chinese aircraft begin turning away. The engagement lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. Not a single weapon was fired. But the message was unmistakable: technological superiority, training excellence, and tactical flexibility trump numbers every single time. As the 4 Super Hornets trap back aboard the USS John C. Stennis, the debriefing begins. The Air Wing commander reviews the data: 16 simulated kills. 0 losses. A perfect score. But in Beijing, a very different debriefing is taking place. The aftermath of this encounter reverberated far beyond the South China Sea. Within weeks, leaked Chinese military documents revealed a comprehensive review of their air combat training. The PLAF admitted what their pilots had discovered the hard way: they weren't ready for modern air warfare. China responded by overhauling their pilot training curriculum. Flight hours increased. Realistic dissimilar air combat training was introduced. New data link systems were fast-tracked into production. The J-20 stealth fighter program received additional funding. But here's the sobering reality: training takes years. Culture takes decades. And the US Navy has a 70-year head start. American naval aviation has been refined through continuous combat experience, from Midway to the Marianas Turkey Shoot, from MiG Alley to Desert Storm, from Afghanistan to the global war on terror. Every lesson learned has been codified, trained, and perfected. The Super Hornet itself is a product of this culture. Yes, it's technologically advanced. But what makes it truly lethal is the 18-year-old sailor on the flight deck who launches it perfectly in the dark. The maintenance crews who achieve 85% mission-capable rates. The intelligence officers who brief the pilots on enemy tactics. The entire ecosystem of excellence. China can buy technology. They can reverse engineer weapons. But they can't shortcut experience. And that's what makes encounters like this so significant. They reveal the invisible factors that determine victory in modern warfare: training, doctrine, leadership, and culture. So what does this engagement tell us about the future of conflict in the Pacific? First, it shows that quantity doesn't guarantee victory. 16 aircraft couldn't overcome 4 simply because numbers alone don't win fights. Coordination, information dominance, and superior training do. Second, it reveals that despite decades of modernization, China's military still has critical weaknesses, particularly in realistic training and joint operations. The PLAF is improving rapidly, but they are fighting against a US military that's been perfecting its craft through constant evolution. Third, it demonstrates why America's network of alliances matters. Those 4 Super Hornets weren't just representing the United States, they were defending a rules-based international order that benefits Japan, South Korea, Australia, and dozens of other nations. But perhaps most importantly, this engagement reminds us that deterrence works. The goal wasn't to destroy 16 Chinese aircraft, it was to make clear that attempting to do so would be suicidal. By demonstrating overwhelming tactical superiority without firing a shot, the US Navy achieved something far more valuable than a shoot-down. They achieved respect that in the end, the best battles are the ones never fought. And on that day in the South China Sea, 4 American pilots won a victory that will echo for generations, not through violence, but through undeniable proof that excellence, training, and discipline still matter in an age of technology and numbers. The skies above the Pacific remain contested. The tensions haven't disappeared. But every pilot who trains to defend freedom now knows one thing for certain: when you're the best in the world, you don't need to fire a shot to prove it.